Mic testing, mic testing.
Mic testing, mic testing.
Hi, Urmila. Hi, Mohan.
Hi, Merlia. We are already live now.
Okay.
Hi,
Ready to
hi
start.
Merlia. Good
Hi,
evening.
Mohan. Can you maybe turn your video on? I think it would be better, right?
Yeah.
Hi, we can get started. I'm ready. All yours.
Urmila, are we ready to go?
Yes, we can start now.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you could find time on a Friday evening to be with us and try to understand how to get into Madhi, what kind of work opportunities are available, and also try to understand what it takes to work with the government, what will be the kind of opportunities to learn, and what kind of application process we follow here, and also answer all your questions of how, when, and why. And with that, let me introduce briefly the kind of projects that we have taken. Tamil Nadu government has launched Enumeration, an ambitious program to ensure universal literacy and numeracy outcomes for all elementary school students within Tamil Nadu government schools by 2025. Madhi Foundation has been recognized as the chief management partner for the Ennum Eduthum mission. The holistic interventions designed by Madhi will impact 2 million children across every Tamil Nadu government primary school over the next 5 years through systemic transformation in partnership with the state. Madhi will be working with 2 million students, 1 lakh teachers, 37,000 schools, and 45,000 officials. We co-diagnose, co-deliver, and co-design with the government all the components of the program. Since Madhi was founded in 2016, we have grown exponentially in reach and team size. From 2 districts in 2016 to all the 38 districts of Tamil Nadu in 2021, from 15 schools in 2016 to all the 37,000 schools in Tamil Nadu in 2020. Having said that, let me introduce the CEO of Madhi Foundation, Ms. Merlia Shaukath. She comes with over a decade of experience in the development sector with leadership roles in organizations like Teach for India and Athena Economics. She is an alumni of London School of Economics and Political Science and the University of Oxford. Merlia believes that access to quality early childhood education is the greatest leveler against social inequity and is committed to working towards equity in education. With that short introduction about Madhi Foundation, the work we do, and the leader, I now invite Ms. Merlia to share her thoughts before we move on to the question and answer session. Over to you, Merlia.
Thank you so much, Mohan, and thank you for setting this up. I think, we've been looking for an opportunity like this to really be able to speak to the group and the people that have constantly applied to Madhi, have reached out with questions. As you rightly said, we're growing from a team of 30 to 200, and we wanted to make our processes more transparent, so more people can apply and join us, and also give maybe a quick glimpse of the kind of culture and systems that we have at Madhi, the kind of people practices we have at Madhi, so more people are encouraged to apply and join. So I'm looking forward to the next 1 hour, Mohan, where we'll discuss all things Madhi. And like you said, the how, when, and why of what we do at Madhi. I think you're on mute, Mohan. I'm unable to hear you.
Thank you, Merlia. Thank you. The most frequently asked question that comes to us is, can you share an overview of the hiring process? Would you like to?
So at Madhi, I think our hiring process is both simple and rigorous. Simple because it's pretty straightforward. Rigorous because of the quality of these interactions. It's simple in the sense that you are asked to fill up an application form, and I will assure everyone who's listening to this, saying that every single application that we receive is reviewed personally by either one of our HR team members or many a time even by me. I look at all the critical roles, even at the application stage. Once we've looked at the application, we take the candidate through to the next round, which is typically a very quick screening call with either a vertical head or a sub-vertical head from Madhi, from the vertical that they will eventually work with. After the screening call, there's an interview. The interview is typically 45 minutes to 60-minute long, but it is quite rigorous. So I would say expect the unexpected in the interviews. We do not follow a sort of a traditional interview process. The questions that you will encounter will be very non-traditional. So be authentic, be genuine. There's very little that preparation can help you in that sense. And the last step would be a written assignment, which would require anywhere between 4 to 8 hours of your time. And we typically give candidates anywhere between 2 to 4 days to complete that assignment and submit. So we take you to the assignment round only if a candidate makes it through the previous 2 rounds, and we keep the candidates informed at every single step. I know there is a lot being discussed about candidates ghosting organizations, organizations ghosting candidates, and we ensure that we do not do that. 100% of applications that come to us are reviewed. Every response that you provide on the application is reviewed, and every applicant that makes it beyond the application stage will hear from us if their application is not successful, and obviously you will hear from us if it is successful. So that's the gist of the process at Madhi.
Thank you very much for sharing an overview of the hiring process, Merlia. Another question that frequently is asked, which is thrown at us, is how do you describe the work environment here at Madhi? Is the work typically more collaborative or more independent?
I'll throw it right back at you, Mohan. What do you think?
It's very collaborative, more very independent too. Collaborative in the sense it's a very open forum that we have. I mean, a platform wherein everybody gets to know what the other person is doing. And unless you are able to take your decisions, be independent, take charge of things, it becomes very difficult to uh, progress further here. I mean, this has been my experience.
That's bang on, right? I think there is a space for collaboration and the space for working independently as well. But I think the nature of the work and we prefer collaborative ways of working. I believe that at any given point in time before a project is kicked off, there's a lot of uh, brainstorming that happens as a group, and even going forward, there's a system where everybody knows what their independent role is, but they also have visibility on how that sort of comes together collectively. So I would say that at times the work is collective, at times the work is individual, and the magic happens when both sort of come together at the right time.
Another question that keeps coming very frequently is that does Madhi offer continued learning or learning and development activities?
So this is something I will admit that we have not, we have great structures. I think we have structures and processes and systems, and we're very proud of them because we've worked really hard to bring them to where they are. But I think L&D is an area that we still can do much better on, and this year we've committed to making it the year of L&D for Madhi. We are working on right from building the competency matrix to mapping that to L&D, to mapping that to even performance management. That entire life cycle is something that I'm personally overseeing this year. And we're hoping to have that in place and have something that will sustain for a few years at least. For now, how L&D looks like at Madhi is, of course, as we all know, 70% of learning happens on the job, right? So there's no, in that sense, there is no, there is no difference in terms of what the industry standard generally is and what Madhi provides. So a lot of the learning that we've heard even our team members say happens on the job because a lot of it is new, a lot of it is complex. So 70% of the learning happens on the job. Over and above that, we have forums and spaces where we come together fortnightly or even once a month. Where there are structured learning spaces for team members to leverage. Over and above this, we do have a budget for L&D that team members, as and when they need or they feel the need to take up a course or they want to attend a particular workshop, then the organization steps in and supports. If there is a professional fee involved, then we step in and say, you can take it up, and we sort of pay the course fee, or we put the course fee. Like I said, there isn't. We'd like for more system and structure to be in place with respect to our L&D. And now that the team is growing, I think earlier the team was, till last year during COVID, our team was about 10 or 11. right? And therefore the focus was on entirely different things. Now that we're growing, it's definitely an organizational priority going forward, and we're working on it. I would say almost on a daily basis, there are conversations about how we should get this off the ground and put it into place. And I'm confident that in probably a month from now, we'll have a solid L&D plan for Madhi in place.
Glad you could share that, Merlia, because I've been seeing at close quarters how passionate you are about learning and development activities, and you've been a hands-on CEO trying to create opportunities for all the people missing. Having said that, let's move on to the next question. What are the key projects Madhi is working on? Does Madhi work only with the government?
Well, at the moment, yes, in the sense that the one program of ours that is live at the moment is with the government. As you rightly pointed out, the Enumeration mission is our sort of our mainstay at the moment. So it does, in that sense, occupy 80% of our time, effort, bandwidth, and team members. But we are actively also building a pipeline of pilots that would operate in independent of our work with the government. So, when we started off, say 5 years ago or 6 years ago, the intent was always to work at scale and to always to work with the system. But how we started off doing that is by building pilots that would, eventually have proven success, and then we could take that to system leaders and then have that be adopted by the system. I think similarly we will continue to therefore experiment with pilots and projects independent of our work with the government. If it scales organically and we're able to do that independent of our association with the government, then that's great. But I think we continue to believe in the government as a great muscle and machinery for delivery, especially for education. So if you're able to build strong pilots and then take that for systemic adoption, then that would be great. So right now we have a catalytic arm, which is our government projects arm, and we have a programmatic/pilot arm where we test out new ideas.
Great. And then what does success look like in this organization, and how do you measure it?
I think again I'm going to volley this back to you, Mohan, because you're fairly new to the organization, and but I'm hoping that you've seen enough to know what success looks like. You've probably been able to put some definition to it by now. So I'd love to hear what your perception of success at Madhi right now.
Success, as I have understood in the short time that I have spent, is that understanding what commitment one is giving, living up to it, meeting the deadlines, and delivering the goods that is expected of work. This is what I have learned, and I would like you to elaborate on that.
Sure. For me, I think, or for the organization, success obviously means being able to see the mission through, to do justice to the vision that we have, to do justice to the mission that we have, which in this case is to ensure that our children receive an excellent quality of education in our public schools. Children from our children who come from underserved, marginalized, the most difficult backgrounds, we're able to do justice to our vision of enabling the system to change their life paths through education. So that, for me, in that sense, in a big picture way, is success. Success on a day-to-day or in our role is about our actions converging towards that mission, right? And I think once you have your eye on that mission, then you define success for yourself. Everybody defines success individually at Madhi as well as collectively. What does success look like as a vertical for us? What does success look like individually for us? As an individual contributing member. And at the end of the day, over and above the OKRs that we may have and the deliverables that we have, and you said, deadlines, meeting deadlines, those are, I think, everyday tactical things at Madhi. Success at Madhi really, if I were to think of somebody who I think is successful at Madhi, I would say it is that person who is able to inspire others with their mission orientedness and mission obsession. That is what success at Madhi is like.
Wonderful. What are some of the highlights of working with the government? Because this is something that everyone is curious about.
That's right. Highlights of working with the government is just that you get to understand the sinews of the system that all of us are dependent on, right? We're all dependent on the government as a system. So once you start working with the government, then there is so much there is so much reality that you come face to face with, hard reality that you come face to face with, and a lot of your assumptions, presumptions, preconceived notions get completely thrown out of the window. That is the highlight of working with the government. And you also develop an appreciation for just how complex that whole system is, and how it still somehow works, right? We're still very much a functional democracy and a bureaucracy. And despite all the chinks, despite everything that we as common people cry about, there is a lot of work that happens in those corridors. And working with the government, I think the highlight is just the amount of learning that you pick up when you work with the government about how India works, really. So for me, that's been the biggest highlight. And I'm sure a lot of the team members working directly would also agree with me that just learning to problem solve for some of the most complex problems, some of the most complex social problems, and learning to solve for the majority can only happen when you work with the government. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from having worked with the government.
Just for the benefit of the viewers, not many organizations get to work in the kind of scale that Madhi is working with this Tamil Nadu government. And Madhi has managed to achieve that in less than 6 years of its existence. So that's something that I would like to stress upon.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years is still a long time, but you're right. It takes an enormous amount of, I think, end of the day, you need the system to be able to trust you, right? And therefore, that does not happen very quickly. And I think it shouldn't happen very quickly, right? I mean, why should the government trust anyone? Even if it's a non-profit or an NGO, very quickly. So I think anybody who wishes to work with the government must have the patience and the persistence, and know that it's the right thing for the system to do, to take its time to bring on trusted partners on board. So very, very grateful and very humbled that we are where we are.
May I suggest that we take a break and ask the questions which have come from which has been posted in the YouTube. One
Absolutely.
question is, what kind of tech is being used in the 16 model of Madhi's technology, teaching, learning methodology, training, tracking, tutoring at home, and targeted communication?
I'm so glad somebody's taken the trouble to go through the website and really understood our model well, and is asking a very, very interesting and very pertinent question. So, philosophically, Madhi as an organization believes that technology can be an enabler. It's not a panacea. We don't look at technology as the solution, but technology as an amplifier of other human-centric solutions. So, therefore, technology in this case could be to simplify data collection. It could be to simplify training. It could be to improve the quality of training. It could be to improve the quality of data that is collected from training. It could be to improve the quality of data that's collected from classroom observations. So, so there's different elements and different types of use cases that we deploy for technology at Madhi, depending on the need of the project. But like I said, technology is at the core of what we do, but it is not, uh, the silver bullet that is that a lot of other organizations tout it to be. So we don't believe that it's in technology, if deployed in silos, can work magic.
Great. Sabresh Shankar has another interesting question. He wants to know, could you please share a bit more about the Madhi's current work at a school level and about your engagement with the government? What is in store for the upcoming year? Part of it you already answered, but
So, in terms of our work at the school level, we don't work at the school level with respect to Enumeratum. Our work is at the system level, which means that we work either with the senior bureaucratic leadership in Chennai at the state level, or at the district bureaucratic leadership. Maybe at the district collector's level or the chief educational officer's level. So, therefore, our interaction or intervention at the school level with respect to Enumeratum is limited. However, like I mentioned, there are a few pilots that we are kickstarting this year, which will take us to classrooms. So, one of those pilots is called Enjoy English, which is really a program to improve foundational English outcomes. Given that a lot of government schools these days in Tamil Nadu or across India are English medium, and the fear of English has really gripped our children so much that they start looking at it as a subject that needs to be mastered and not a language that needs to be sort of enjoyed. So, Enjoy English is an endeavor to eliminate those fears about the language and make it an enjoyable learning experience for children. Of course, I mean it's going to be a lot of song and dance, but there's also a very strong element of learning that will be tied into it as well. The other pilot that I'm very, very excited about is called Vidum Vipu, which is basically us taking the message of foundational learning to the parent community, right? And research will tell you, I think even common sense will tell you that any sort of educational reform, especially for very young children, cannot be successful if the community is left out of the picture, if the parent community and the community at large is left out of the picture. So, Veeram Viripum is our effort to take the message of foundational learning to every community, every household. Doesn't matter if the parent is semi-literate or non-literate or literate, but to remind every parent that they can be a strong enabler for children's foundational learning. And that's the other pilot that will perhaps not take us to classrooms, but take us very, very close to the communities we work with.
wonderful to know. There is another interesting question from Sendil Kumar. He says, I'm not in a position to relocate to Chennai. Sorry. To go, my native place is Karur. Apart from the regional manager's post, is there any other opportunity available to work in district headquarters?
Madhi is working closely with the government to, run the Tamil Nadu Education Fellowship. So, which means that our responsibility there is to, support the department in recruiting, training, and managing the Tamil Nadu Education Fellows. Sendil was, sorry, what his name was Sendil? Sendil Kumar.
Sendil Kumar.
Please go ahead and, you apply to the Tamil Nadu Education Fellowship, in which case, you will be placed in one of the, 38 districts in Tamil Nadu. It may not be a Madhi headquarter or a Madhi office, because our work there is so closely linked with the district school education office, that you will be placed in perhaps the block office or the CEO's office, but the work will continue to be the work will be very close to what we have been doing at a state level. At the district level, you'll be driving implementation more, and in close quarters with the district leadership.
Another interesting question is this: are there 38 STEAM model schools from Chennai alone, or from across Tamil Nadu?
So the vision of the Tamil Nadu government is to set up one STEAM model school in every district. So therefore, to answer your question very simply, it's going to be one model school in every district, and not all of them concentrated in Chennai. I'm completely amazed, or I'm completely blown away by the fact that people are going to the website, getting a lot of information, and asking such pertinent questions. Thoroughly enjoying it.
Wonderful. And yet another person wants to have an update on Tamil Nadu Education Fellowship selection.
I am not as closely involved with the TNEF selection personally, so unfortunately I may not be able to answer this in great detail. But please do write to the email ID that you have been corresponding on, and rest assured that you will receive a response with respect to your application. If your application has not been successful, then it's very difficult for us to let every single candidate know. To give you a sense, we've received about 20 to 22,000 applications so far. So it's very difficult and nearly impossible to communicate or send an individual sort of response to every candidate. So, but we also provide a caveat in the application form itself, saying that if you don't hear from us within a certain period of time, then you can assume that your application has not been successful. But should you have doubts over and above this, feel free to write through the email ID. Mohan, perhaps you can share the email ID as well.
Yes, tnef2022@gmail.com. tnef2022@gmail.com. And another point that I would like to add to what Merlia was saying was that please look out, check your mails every day. We respond only through emails. Many a time we'll say that I didn't know, but this is how we respond. If at all you're selected, you cross the first stage of screening. If you're invited for the second stage of screening, you would get an email invite for that. Another question is that what do you see as the most challenging aspect of working in the social sector?
Most challenging aspect. I think the most challenging aspect is that there's so many problems to solve and not nearly enough time to solve them. Once you're in the sector, initially you start by asking, sorry, am I still audible?
Yes, yes. You are still audible. Please continue speaking. I think there's just a problem on Mohan's end. But
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So to come back, I think the most challenging aspect is that, once you're in the sector, you come face to face with so many different social problems that you desperately want to solve, but cannot. Even within the education sector, for that matter, there's so many problems and so many challenges that need solving. So we say foundational learning first, because so every child can thrive. It doesn't mean that there aren't other problems that need solving in the sector. There's so many other aspects of learning and education that still beg for equity in India, right? So I think the biggest challenge for me as a social sector professional has been to really, choose which problem to solve first. And I think the second challenge is just uh, being able to dig deep for patience, because change is just so hard, and so it takes so much time that sometimes you get impatient. You want to see change happen quickly. You want children to start learning, and you want education to get better, but that's not how it works, unfortunately. So many a time, I think at least personally for me, the biggest challenge has been to find that patience to hang on, and that sort of sense of possibility and resilience to say change will come. You just need to be patient and work with the right team to solve the problem. So yeah, that's been the biggest challenge.
Another interesting question is that, I'm sorry, there was a little hitch here.
No problem.
I'm planning to transition to the social sector. Do you have any tips for me? And let me know how I can prepare better.
The transition to the social sector is a very tricky subject, and because I haven't transitioned to the social sector, right? I started off my career in the social sector, and I've been in the social sector the last 15 odd years. So I'm not sure if I'm the right person to take this question in terms of transition, but I'll give it a shot. And Mohan, please feel free to add, because I think in terms of transitions, you've probably been, this is probably more relevant as a question for you. I would only say that, get your reason for transition right. Be absolutely brutally honest with yourself about why you're making that transition. Is it are you making it because you think it's going to be easier, it's going to be lighter, it's going to be more fun, it's going to give you a better work-life balance? If those are your reasons, then I think you'll be a little disappointed, because the sector is no longer just about people retiring and doing something that's lighter than your work in the corporate sector. It's become extremely it's very professional. It's in a good way. I mean that in a good way, and it's competitive for the right reasons. Competitive in the sense that everyone's trying their best and their hardest to solve a problem. So therefore, I would say be brutally honest about why you're making the transition. Speak to as many people as possible who've made the transition successfully. And number 3, become aware of, I think, that the sort of what some would call the ugly truths of the social sector. The fact that you may be underpaid, you may be overworked, you may run out of patience at times. So those are the ugly truths. I mean, it is true at the end of the day, right? We'll never be able to, as a sector, match up to the corporate sector in terms of pay and perks and all of that. I've incidentally written something on my LinkedIn on this. It's called the 10 deadly sins while transitioning, that you should avoid making while transitioning from the private sector or the for-profit sector to the social sector. So I can probably find a link and put it in some time. But if you just go to my LinkedIn page or add me on LinkedIn and go through the few posts that I put up, it did resonate with a lot of people. So if this is a question that you're grappling with, then maybe this will be useful for you.
I can assure you that it's like the 10 commandments for this sector. I mean, anyone should go through that. We'll try to, if you're not able to share the link now, what we'll do is we'll post it in the YouTube. Anyone can access that. We should be
Sure.
able to do that. In case we don't, we'll post it on the YouTube. Please do come back to check on that link.
Yeah.
Another question is this: what does your onboarding process look like?
When you're 3 months into the onboarding process, maybe they want to hear it from the horse's mouth. So, do you want to share what your experience with onboarding has looked like?
I'll be glad to do that. In fact, the induction process is very, very thorough. It starts with a lot of learning, especially to answer. It relates to the previous question. Anyone transitioning into this would need to understand this sector. There are a lot of opportunities created to understand and learn more to transition into this thing. And the roles are clearly explained and the deliverables are clearly discussed. The onboarding process is very elaborate, very intense, and it stretches anywhere between 15 days to a month. It's a very interesting process, and anyone who goes through that, I mean, I would say that it is as interesting, as knowledge enriching as it would be in any corporate setup.
I posted the link on the chat here, Mohan. If you can post that on YouTube as well, maybe they can just access it.
We would do that, yeah. And another interesting question is that what is the performance review process like in Madhi, and how often would I be formally reviewed?
So I think there are both formal and informal processes, right? We obviously don't want a system where you have it once a year and you have this surprise waiting for you at the end of the year with your performance appraisal. So we actively avoid that situation. We have 2 cycles, one mid-year. We follow the financial year. So mid-year is typically in September, end of year is typically in March. So that's when you formally get reviewed. But over and above that, there are many instances where you would receive feedback on your performance. It could be as as frequently as once a fortnight, or even once a month, once a quarter for sure. But I think these are systems that allow for informal feedback to be provided. But I think it's very much an indication of what is going to come in your mid-year review. So generally, people are not caught off guard when the formal reviews happen, because there is a lot of informal review that precedes our mid-year and end-year reviews. So we have something called a fortnightly check-in, where the manager and their managees or reportees have a one-on-one conversation on how they're doing. We have a monthly progress to goals, where your progress to goals and progress to milestones are evaluated, and how you're doing and what is the support that you need. And once a quarter, we come together as an organization to sort of review how we're doing as an organization, as a team, as an organization. So there are many instances to review performance and also to be able to offer support, right? There's no point in reviewing performance for the sake of reviewing performance. There needs to be, it needs to be purposeful. If you're reviewing performance, it should be, it should come with the promise of support and promise of getting better, right? And therefore, that's why we have, a sort of an array of platforms and systems, and not just one performance appraisal system.
There's another interesting question from Lakshminarayan. I come with a good amount of experience and exposure in IT development in the education sector, especially in the early childhood education. Can I first come in and try to join a role that best fits me?
Talk to us, Mr. Lakshminarayan, right?
Yes.
Please talk to us. Happy to share our email ID with you. Please write to us. And we always have people dropping by and meeting us and talking to us about how they can join us full time, part time, freelance, consultant, advisor. We're open to any kind of support that we can get at this point. So I'd love to have a chat with you, and please share your email ID, and also if somebody can share our email ID with Lakshmi Narayan, I'll be happy to speak with him.
Another question again from Sabri Shankar is that how is Madhi currently evaluating the impact of its pilot work? Could you please share about the role of Center for Research and Innovation on foundational learning?
So every single project of ours has a rigorous monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework. So even before the project hits the ground, like I said, we come together as a team to talk about what is it that we want to see at the end of it, which is, what are the metrics that we want to evaluate, how will we evaluate them, how often will we evaluate them, what are some non data based anecdotes and evidences that we will collect that will really tell us whether what we're doing is working on the ground or not, because sometimes data may not give you the entire picture of what is happening on the ground. So the MEL framework captures our entire framework in terms of what are our inputs, how will we evaluate them, towards what, and the same goes for our pilots. So each one of our pilots has its own frameworks, and we use that framework to drive our monitoring, evaluation, and learning activities on the ground. With respect to Enumeratum, given that it's such a large government-led initiative, we're actually at this point, the government is going to appoint a third-party evaluator to come in and evaluate the program, evaluate Madhi's contribution, etc. So therefore that will be an independent third-party evaluation. Pilots, initially we're looking at doing it internally, but once the pilots stabilize, say at the end of 3 years, then we generally bring in an external evaluator to evaluate our pilots as well. So that's how we go about project evaluations at Madhi.
Another question is a very role-specific question from Acharya Prabhu. Mm-hmm. He's asking, is knowing to read and write Tamil a mandate for the senior manager training and capacity building? Would spoken Tamil be enough?
Yeah, I think spoken Tamil may not be enough, because a lot of the content that gets transacted is generally bilingual. Be it the PPTs or the handouts or any of the content that gets transacted in these training sessions is bilingual. It's mostly Tamil with a smattering of English. And as you can imagine, it makes most sense to do that, because our educators come from a vernacular medium background, and it's best that we communicate with them in a language that they are most comfortable with. So I think being able to read Tamil, even if not write formal Tamil, or being able to create content in Tamil, even though that may not be a requirement, being able to read Tamil is certainly going to be a requirement for that particular role. You're on mute, Mohan.
There are another interesting questions which came through our registrations, opportunities in each district of Tamil Nadu, which has already been answered. And then reach, scope, and launch of Enumeration, we've already discussed. For the benefit of those who joined late, would you like to repeat?
So in terms of the reach of Enumeration, it covers every single government primary school in the state. I believe that's anywhere between 32,000 to 37,000 schools. So that's the reach. The scope is from grades 1, 2, and 3. Tamil, so Enumeration covers Tamil, English, and mathematics for children in grades 1, 2, and 3. So that's the scope. The launch happened a couple of weeks ago. It made there was quite a lot of noise that was made about it on social media. So if you go and look for Enumeratum, just Google Enumeratum, you'll see a lot of news that came out in the media about the launch. So it's been launched this year, and it's been envisioned as a 5-year initiative by the Tamil Nadu government to improve, to universalize literacy and numeracy among government primary school children. So that's the entirety of Enumeratum. Like I said, you'll find a lot more information online if you just Googled Enumeratum.
There are many who would like to know more about the kind of remote working opportunities, freelancing opportunities. If you could throw light on that.
Sure. I think we've just as a ecosystem, we've embraced remote working now thanks to COVID. But now that we've actually come back to work in physical spaces and come together as a team, I can't imagine remote working completely replacing coming together as a team. There's just so much joy and so much camaraderie and so much learning that happens when you're together in a physical space that we're trying not to make remote work sort of the norm. It's a very, very rare exception that we make, only in cases where we think it's absolutely not possible to have that person work with us in Chennai, or have that role. If it's not filled and we desperately want to fill it, then we make some exceptions. But to the greatest extent possible, we want to ensure that our team is together and working well and gelling well, and that I believe can happen, especially in the work that we do, right? The nonprofit work that we do. There's so much that happens in the field, in the ground, that unless you're out there experiencing that and living those experiences on a regular basis, it's going to be very difficult for you to stay connected with the work that we do. Freelancing opportunities, we have quite a few. We do put out these opportunities on our social media very often. So please do keep an eye out on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, where I think most active on these 3 platforms, especially when it comes to openings and opportunities at Madhi. So if there's anything that's live, you will also find it on our website. Our website is almost it is updated on a very, very regular basis. So all our current openings and opportunities are available on our website, which is madhifoundation.org. So if you look it up, you'll see both full-time, part-time, freelancing, all the opportunities that are available at the moment on our website.
There's another interesting question from Ms. Vani Balasubramaniam. It's about scaling. What issues has Madhi particularly encountered while working at scale in Tamil Nadu, as opposed to working in small-sized interventions?
Working at scale, whether in Tamil Nadu or I think anywhere else, brings with it a certain degree of complexity and solving for that complexity. I think the questions that you start asking when you work at scale are very different from the kind of questions that you would ask when you're working, with a much smaller group. The questions go from, what is the best that I can do with the abundance of resources available, to asking what is the best that I can do given all the constraints that we have to work around, right? So therefore, you start thinking more in terms of constraints and working around those constraints rather than thinking in terms of abundance. That's the biggest mindset shift that happens when you go from working with a small group to working at scale. The other shift that happens when you move from working in a much smaller group, impacting a smaller group versus working on a much larger scale, is the kind of trade-offs that you start making, right? I always look at this analogy where if you have 100 starving children and you only had say 1,000 rupees to feed all those 100 children, Would you feed a lavish buffet to 10 children and exhaust that 1,000 rupees? Or would you feed all 100 children very basic meals that will take care of their starvation? Right? And that analogy can be applied to any sector, not just, I mean, that could be in terms of food or nutrition, but even if you were to look at education, your access to your resources at your disposal are finite. With those finite and very, very constrained resources, would you want to impact 10% of the children and move their lives by 90%? Or would you want to work with 90% of children and move the needle by 10%? I think this is an ethical, moral dilemma. There is no straight answer to it, and there is no right answer to it. So I think it just comes down to the kind of problems that you're looking to solve, how urgently it needs to be solved, and really what are the resources that you have, and what are the constraints that you need to work around.
Thank you. And many who have joined in late have again raised a query about, they're very curious to know about the Tamil Nadu Education Fellowship. Probably this could be the last question because we are close to scheduled time.
Yes.
So we could possibly end the conversation by sharing your thoughts on the Tamil Nadu Education Fellowship.
I'll leave it to you, Mohan. You're the man of the hour when it comes to Tamil Nadu Education Fellowship. So, how can people get more information about it? Where can they go to find more information? And where are we right now in terms of our recruitment for the TNEF?
Tamil Nadu Education Fellowship is a pioneering effort by the government of Tamil Nadu. There are many states across the country who have been doing fellowships relating to the governance. But for exclusively for education, this is a unique program that has been launched by the Tamil Nadu government. And all the details are being shared in the social media, and we'll share the links at the end of this conversation, in the YouTube link also, for the benefit of the people who are not aware of it. And just to repeat what Malia had said, we've received a tremendous response. We've received 22,145 applications.
Wow.
So we've done a diligent due diligence and shortlisted close to 2,000 applications only. And you know how competitive the whole process is. And the process is a three-stage process. First stage is the screening process, wherein you would be expected to write an essay and make a simple PowerPoint presentation, at the end of which it's a 200-word essay that you're expected to write. This is done to test your ability to write, and the PPT is to test your ability to make simple presentations, because that is what you will be expected to do throughout your stay as a Tamil Nadu education. Anyone who clears that stage would be invited to do some pre-work. They would be expected to analyze brief data that is given to you. You have to analyze the data and give the information, and also write an essay about what education is with the present state and everything. And anyone who clears that would be invited for the third stage, which will be a personal interview. And the third stage again will be done in two stages. The first stage would be a group discussion, wherein we'll be giving a topic to to the participants, give them few minutes to think about it, and everybody will be given an opportunity to speak for at least 2 minutes. Most of the people to take it up, few don't. That is one. And on top of that, we make it voluntary. There are two more stages which are made voluntary. Anyone who wants to counter what the others have said, what the others have spoken, they can raise their hands and they will get 1 minute. 5 of them will get a minute each, and they can raise that. Finally, yet again, the opportunity would be to summarize the whole conversation. This is how the process is, and it's a very transparent process. Anyone who was applied and who has not got any message from us for the first 1 month, if it has crossed 30 months, you can safely assume that you have not cleared the stage.
30 days.
30 days, yeah. At the end of this conversation, we'll share the links also with you. I mean, the YouTube link, so you can please go through the details. And that kind of concludes, because we've run out of time. We will have less than 2 minutes to conclude.
If there are any more questions, please share them with me, Mohan. I'm happy to put them in the under the YouTube video, and people can probably go through
That
it.
would be wonderful. So anyone who has any question, please feel free to post your questions in the YouTube. We would take that and get Merlia's answer and share it with you in the form of a video. Thank you once again. Thank you, Merlia, for finding time to talk to the people. And thank you, audience, participants, for the very insightful questions that you raised. It was a very interesting conversation that we had. And thank you very much. Please do follow us. We'll be conducting more such programs. And please do follow us on LinkedIn, social media, Instagram. We are present everywhere. We share all our openings. In fact, as we said earlier, we are growing exponentially. There are many opportunities that are coming up. And please do visit our website, which is madhifoundation.org. All the open positions are advertised there. In fact, one unique thing is we even advertise the pay band that we offer. Not many organizations do that. That way, we are a very transparent organization. So I would request every one of you to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere, and keep following. And we make all the announcements in all these social media handles. Thank you once again for being a part of this wonderful conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mohan. Thank you for moderating such a very, very engaging conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Urmila. Thanks for all the hard work that you've done behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you, Urmila.